Now, when we speak about trade, a lot of different cross currents going on, not only with China, but Japan, and then there's USMCA. And to that point, President Trump said risking a trade deal related to Mexico might be worth it if you're talking about securing the border. Here's how he put it. Take a listen.
I said, I'm going to close the border if you don't start shaping up. But Mexico's doing a terrible job.
I mean, you can't close the border, though, right before USMCA gets ratified, though, right? I mean, you're waiting on this ratification of USMCA.
Because this, to me, is more important than USMCA.
Point Bridge Capital founder Hal Lambert joins us now on this idea, putting the border, Hal, before trade. So, you know, to some economists, they say, boy, that's dangerous because we've talked about the impact of closing the border if it came to that. But again, the president has been pretty, straightforward in this position that that's his issue, and he wants to make sure that the border is secure. So what's your take on the two of those things together?
Well, what's going on the southern border is a complete travesty. I mean, we have tens of thousands of little kids being trafficked by drug cartels, by adults. We don't know if they're their family members or not. We have no way to know, just so that those adults can get into our country and then disappear. And President Trump's done a lot of things to try to curtail that. But the courts have ruled against him. He's got to release the kids after 20 days. They're released out. No one knows where they go or what happens to them. It's terrible. I mean, it's actually tragic. And the Democrats in Congress simply won't do anything about it, and Mexico's not doing anything about it. So President Trump's right to criticize Mexico on this. We just saw pictures of a train with thousands of people on top of this train cruising across Mexico to get to the United States.
Right.
Something's got to be done
on the issue. Even if he's right on all of what you mentioned, that something has to be done, and it's a true crisis and all the rest, is he right on saying that it's more important than a trade deal? New numbers out show that Mexico has passed Canada recently to become our largest trading partner. So there's a lot of, you got to balance the two, I suppose, to some extent, right?
Well, what President Trump's looking at is a leverage point. And look, Mexico is 3% of GDP for us. That's the trade. So it's not a huge number. Mexico is 51% of Mexico's GDP, the trade with the United States. So it's over half of their economy is tied to the United States, where only 3% of our economy is tied to them. So it will hurt, certain parts of the cities around the border,
right.
And San Diego, certain parts of Texas. I'm in Texas. It's not going to be good for Texas, but it's going to be terrible for Mexico. So I think from a Mexico standpoint, they need to look at this very hardly and say, look, are we going to allow just mass migration across our country to get to the United States, or are we going to control it so that we can have our trade negotiations and everything going well with the United States? Because it's really, really important for them.
All right, one separate issue before I let you go, Hal, and that is there's supposed to be a big meeting tomorrow. We always call it the Chuck and Nancy meeting, right, when the president sits down with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. The topic, from what we understand, a lot of this will be about infrastructure spending, and there's been reporting that maybe the president's more aligned with the Democrats on some of these issues, and he wants to spend a lot of government money on infrastructure. We'll see. What we just heard from our own Blake Berman's reporting a few minutes ago is that this meeting is going to be a wider meeting. It's not going to just be Chuck and Nancy. It's going to be a number of other big-time members of Congress at the meeting, which would lead you to believe that maybe they're serious about getting something done finally on infrastructure. You think it's a good idea and a good use, given the deficit and deficit issues that we have, of government money?
Well, I think both Republicans and Democrats are in agreement we need to do infrastructure. The big question is, how do you pay for it, which is what you're asking.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to happen? The Democrats are going to say, we're going to pay for it by raising taxes. We've got to roll back the tax cuts. We've got to raise taxes. And that's going to be a non-starter. So I think that's going to be really, really difficult to make happen
with
unless the
congressional
Democrats...
Republicans, I agreed 100%. But what about with the president? I mean, he's given some hints, and Axios had a story about this over the weekend, that he may be more in line with the Democrats and want to spend a lot of government money on infrastructure. You don't think that's true? Or?
No, I think that is true, but I think ultimately it may be adding to the deficit because the Democrats are going to want to raise taxes. Republicans aren't going to do it, so they may just print more money to do the infrastructure bill. But then there's going to be Republicans that are going to push back on that as well. So it's going to be difficult. I don't know that we'll get an infrastructure bill because the Democrats are really, I don't think they're going to do it without raising taxes, and they don't want to give President Trump a win going into 2020.
Right.
So honestly, I think it's going to be difficult.
All right. Good enough, Hal. Thanks. It's always good to see you.